that sucked. It broke. Oh, well. I hope everybody's having a good day today. It's Monday, so you get what you get. Uh, we do things as we want to here. So if there's screw ups, just I don't care. All right, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Nathan Bomber Brown, and this is the Holy Rivals Show. With me is my partner, the Wild Ute.
What's up?
And
Hey, everybody. Happy Pioneer Day. And if you don't know what that means, it's a Utah State holiday, right? We're educating folks out here.
only for people that work at banks. I didn't get the day off.
I had the day off today.
I know you did, and you're making me sick. And then today we have one of our special contributors, Immaculate, with us. How you doing, Immaculate?
Doing great today. Happy Monday, guys, and hopefully we have a little something to brighten everyone's Monday.
Yeah, I think we got some good content here. Now, I want to preface this whole show by saying this was Immaculate's idea, so anything that goes wrong, it's his fault.
Wonderful.
So don't
Blame
look
him
at me
100%.
and don't look at you. This is all an Immaculate. All right, let me do a few shout outs here before we get started. Mark Ruka was the first in the house. We have Earl Carr, Laura Weiss. I hope I'm saying that right. Robert France. Pac-12 Pilgrim, Larry's here. Earl Carr, again, I'm just reading names. Dave from Arizona. And that's the house. Craig Kirsch is also here. So what we want to do today is, I don't know if everybody caught it, but Joel Klatt did an interview with Brett Yormark, and it kind of looks like it happened the same time as Big 12 Media Days. The reason we think that is he's wearing the same suit that he was wearing at Big 12 Media Days. So I don't think he's the type of guy to wear the same suit every day. So we're just going to assume that this was done over a week ago, but there's some really good content in it, and we hope that you get something out of this. We're going to play some videos, do some explanation and explanation and some discussion, and then we'll bring you into the conversation. We want to talk to people. We'll invite people to call in, and we also will be reading the comments. Before I turn it over to Immaculate, one last thing is please subscribe. Give us the thumbs up on the video. Please leave us any comments or suggestions. We get a lot of our show ideas from the comments and suggestions we get. And also think about becoming a subscriber. If you're a subscriber, your comments are always preferred read. If nobody else is here and all I have is subscribers, then everybody I'll try to get read. Or you could join and give us a super chat, which obviously we read every one of those. All right, Immaculate. So why don't you preface what we're going to be seeing here?
All right. Well, if anyone hasn't seen this is an interview between Joel Klatt, whom I am a huge fan of. I think he is great in these podcast-style interviews at getting information in a one-on-one basis. He's going to be with Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner. And it does look to be at Big 12 Media Days. So I think what you're going to see is there's a certain air of gravitas from Mr. Yormark. He's pretty happy in this, and he's pretty outgoing in this. So this was a good time for Joel Klatt to get this in. And so just starting off into this, what you're going to see is him serving up a bit of a softball question to let Brett Yormark open this interview up with just kind of his thoughts.
Biggest win of the last year in your mind, what would it be?
Probably going early on the TV negotiations.
Media rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was critically important. You know, I was asked in my first media days what I think about the TV landscape and would I accelerate our negotiations, because we had 2 years before we effectively were at the table, and I felt it was like something we had to do. I think we had to solidify our future, create stability and clarity for the members in our conference, generally speaking. And when I look back on that, I think it served as a catalyst for everything we've done since, because there's an opportunity cost to a prolonged negotiation.
Sure.
And the fact that we were able to get it done in 90 days, put it behind us and focus on all the other things, I think was a great boost to our future.
Well,
All right, go ahead, Immaculate.
So there we have it. Just kind of showing his mindset of how important it was for his conference, as you say, Wild, you jumping the line, getting out in front, and what it's allowed him to do. And that prefaces the entire interview going forward, because that's really what turned around the basically where the Big 12 was going. They were set up to be the conference that got divided up, and now they're in a much different position. So seeing from him, the guy who is right there going through this all, saying this was what turned it around, was going early. I think that's very important. And I'm kind of curious real quick, from Wild Oot being a Pac-12 guy, how do you feel about that real quick?
I think that he's right on the money. I mean, I think everyone can see it. Jumping a line was huge, and it put the Pac-12 in a very difficult situation like it finds itself in today. So I think everyone can agree with that. It really is the best play he's made since being a commissioner for the last year. So it's kind of like a no-brainer thing to say, and it just confirms it in this interview. So yeah, it brings more clarity to it.
Excellent.
Let me ask a defining question really quick. You respect Brett Yormark, right? You don't necessarily love how he's communicated stuff, but the work that he's done, I think you've given him props several times. Do I have that correct?
Oh yeah, guys. I wish that we had Brett Yormark as the Pac-12 commissioner. The guy, what I like about Brett Yormark, he has swagger.
Right.
Something that George K just doesn't have. And he can bring along the conference. He has really good leadership skills too. I mean, and I know that he's gotten a lot of bad reputation for being a snake oil salesman for Panzano and others, but I just don't see it that way. I think he's really innovative. And, honestly, he's one of the biggest selling points that the Utes ever made their way into the Big 12. Just seeing what he could do with like a Utah brand and how he could play the Holy Rivals off each other would be remarkable. I just think that he really is a brilliant guy. So I've got nothing to bag on him. I think that he's awesome. I'm a fan.
All right, there we go.
Perfect.
Okay, Immaculate.
I think that carries us right into our next little section. So if you wouldn't mind playing that, I'll talk a little bit more after this.
You bet.
60% of our revenue. When you think about the conference landscape, specifically the Big 12, our media rights and our partnership with ESPN and Fox is 60% of our revenue. So knowing that we have that certainty for an additional 6 years was fantastic for us.
I'm interested.
That's vital. And to go into that further, the 6-year period, people may not realize how big this is. I've seen some the economic projections. It gets them through this period coming up of great uncertainty. And that's what the PAC is having to face right now is they know where they're at, they know where they're going, and they know what they can get. And to get them through this transitionary period going into 2026 and beyond, it's got to be very freeing on the mind to now be able to deal with different business while the PAC is still, and this blows my mind that this has been switched like this, but for the PAC now having to still deal with the stuff that he's now a year behind and moving forward. It's just been so huge for these guys that they're able to do that. And I mean, 60% of their revenue is coming from this. Can you imagine like that much of the PAC's revenue for their ADs is tied up in what they're trying to get worked out right now. So that's why I really wanted to point out that 60% of the revenue part and how big this is.
And just speaks to the weight too that's on the PAC, right? 60% is really everything. More than half of really your revenues you're getting in for the conference. And so this has freed Yormark up and the Big 12 up to innovate, right? Like they just don't have this around their neck. So all of a sudden he looks at Mexico, Big 12 Mexico, and doing a game down there, Rucker Park, and all this cool stuff. And it's really been able to get some momentum behind him once he got this deal done. And the PAC's still just, weighed down with not having it. So I'm with you with that.
What do you think, Immaculate? What do you think that says to the other 4 conferences? Because you're talking to some schools. We're not out of the realignment window yet until the Pac-12 media deal is done. So this coming out this week, I cannot believe was an accident. It seems extremely targeted to happen right after Pac-12 media days. It could have come out last week, right? Joe Clark could have distributed this last week. I think there's a reason it came out today.
It's quite possible that could have been involved with it, maybe saying, hey, we'd like you to release it this time. But we can see where he had the talk, and there is some time for editing and making sure everyone's happy with how it went and, all the stuff that comes along with the business of it. But, yeah, I mean, there might have been some purposeful targeting of it. And I would say, putting on my hat here now, my tinfoil hat, Joel Klatt is the next Colorado quarterback. So his very first one of these interviews was with Prime at Colorado. So
Right.
who knows? There might be some type of move in that direction. But
so you guys think there's a segue here? This came out because the Buffs are going to join the Big 12. Is that kind of what I'm hearing beneath the surface?
I'm not going there.
No,
I think this is much bigger than that. And some of the stuff that we get into later is very big picture and not so Big 12.
I don't think it has anything targeted. Sorry if I wasn't clear. I didn't mean that it came out the next week after Pac-12 Media Days because Colorado's coming. I didn't mean that. If that came across, that's not what I meant. What I meant was it's to make the Big 12 conference just appear to be better, right? To just be in a better position to be flexible and to take on these things. And they could be advertising to anybody. They could be advertising to Arizona. They could be advertising to Washington. Whoever it is, this seems extremely targeted to me. Anyway, we don't have to drum on that anymore. Do you want to move to the next one?
I mean,
Absolutely.
just think about how big, like Yormark's so strong though, like, and he's
Right.
conveying the strong energy and everything, right? Like, and looking at all the Power Five, like Sankey and Yormark are kind of on their league of their own as far as strength, so
Right.
commissioners, and that's a huge win for the Big 12.
Right.
I think that's what you're saying, Bomber. And just showing the strength of the Big 12 and stuff, and like the strong leader out there, and we're going to innovate, we're going to make things happen, right? And that's who he is.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
And
all right, you ready,
that
Immaculate?
I was just going to say that type of confidence can be contagious, and people want to be around it. So it's a good look. But go ahead to the next little portion here.
Okay.
The instigation point for all of that.
100%. It is the true catalyst, and I think stability gives you a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you that voice, that we certainly were looking for long term. And we've leveraged it. We've leveraged it to innovate, to create.
In what ways?
To disrupt. Well, I think it gave us the green light to really start thinking about the conference differently, to grow it, to diversify it, to think about an international strategy, to create new IP, and to think a little bit more into the future. And when it does come to expansion, and I've said it more than once, I love the makeup and the composition of our conference today, but if there's something that is additive, we certainly need to pursue it. And I think that TV deal gave us the right to do it. So it was a true catalyst. It was the instigator, if you will, for everything we're doing today.
That's amazing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
Mm-hmm. And that part that he goes in there about the right to do it, in my opinion, he's thinking directly about that pro rata.
Yes.
He is thinking about that,
Yeah.
and that's the right to go out there and grab any basically P5, which I'm going to start saying this A5. And that's
we need to change. We're going to start saying that too. Me and you are going to start using A5 as well, because we know that's more important than any of these other classifications. Really quick, I want to interrupt you. Coffin, we got a new member. Hey, thanks for subscribing, Coffin. You've been a loyal member for a while now, and we really appreciate it. All the people who have joined, all the members we have, we're going to do or at least I'm going to schedule a day that's just for members, and we're going to have back office sort of discussion about what you guys want to see going forward as we look to cover the seasons coming up, both Utah and BYU, which is what we mostly care about, and then Pac-12 and Big 12 as well. So thanks, Coffin. It's great to see you, and thanks for being here. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Immaculate. Go ahead.
No, absolutely, by all means. But basically, the point on this is, what did the media deal give them the power to do? That's what that little section is about. While, not to keep going on the Pac, but while they're kind of in the race, they're stuck in the same spot right now. They're not moving forward. He's now free to do all these things that he's talking about. Work on movements down into Mexico. Work on their things with the NFL.
Right.
Later on in this, you're going to hear, but he's had talks with the NBA. He's going forward when no one else is competing with him, because guess who doesn't really care about any of this? The Big Ten and the SEC.
Right.
They don't care. This isn't what they're really going to do. So he has no competition right now. And to your question earlier about the ACC, they have no chance to do anything because they're so tied up in their current deal,
right?
That they have no room to negotiate. They're stuck. So he's got no competition right now, and that's pretty amazing.
I love the IP the statement. Maybe that's what you was going to say at the same time I was, but
Sure.
his talking about new IP is brilliant, right? Nobody else is talking about ways to expand their conferences. The Big 12 had a long way to go, and he's come a long way. Go ahead, you.
Yeah, like another thought here is additive, right? That key word, additive. What does additive mean to you two? Because that might mean something to each different to each one of us. So what
I
is
think-
that? Is that accretive? Does that mean that whoever would come in needs to bring more value than existing members? What does additive mean? That's the kind of thing that really kind of drives me nuts to think about and everything. What in the world could it mean? I want to hear what you guys have to think about it. What does
So there's a comment here. Let's see. Moen is here. Moen made it in,
Hey,
and
what's up, Moen?
he had a comment that I had it highlighted, and then we had Kaufman join. You guys keep talking. I'll find it. You answer the question, Immaculate, while I look for this link.
What do you think?
Okay, say it again. I was listening to him. I thought he was going to go, and then I was going to say.
So,
Go ahead.
the word additive, what is Yormark referring to when he's saying additive?
For me, I have two looks at this. One, there's the old style of look of realignment, and that's value additive. What value do they bring to the current strata, the current setup, the current contracts? Do they just add a little bit more so that we can get a little bit more? It's kind of the old style. That's why you're always going for like big name brands or markets or whatever. I think where Yormark, why he seems so brilliant to a lot of people, is he's looking more at the strategic ads, about ads that he can then build around to create other aspects of value. The basketball stuff. He might add some teams for that on their own you look at and say, that doesn't bring us more value to our current contracts. Well, no, it doesn't. It's because he's got something else on his mind, like we'll go into further in this. Certain schools that you might not think are great, but the combination, the total strategy when you add it together and what you can do with it, the end goal is where we're starting to get to a higher risk, higher reward scenario, if that makes sense.
So Moen's comment here says, if UConn joins the Big 12, it's an L. And he's been saying that for months. This isn't something that's new, but it certainly is top of mind right this second, because how many rumors are out there right now that UConn might be coming if Colorado comes by themselves? I think that's really important, that it shows me that Yormark is paying attention. He knows what everybody else is saying about the league. He knows that if he brings in only G5s from here forward, it's going to be a negative. He's not a dummy, and he's seen these shows. He's heard people say other things. And so when you have somebody like Moen Vision, who's an Ohio State and Big Ten homer, that is real. I think that perception it makes it real. And so I think this IP stuff, everything that Yormark's talking about, that's exactly what we're getting to right here.
Hey, Bomber, I've got to say this. Okay, so with UConn, I'm with Moen Vision here. So on the side, I've been working on a evaluation project to value the football only, how much a football program is worth for each P5 school in a conference. I've been working on this project with Saturday Warrior.
Right.
But in the research that I'm doing, guess out of all the teams looked at, guess who's the lowest value football program? I included some select P5 candidates too, including UConn and Fresno State, SDSU. UConn by far is the worst. They're the worst. If you look at their football revenues, over the last 3 fiscal year ends, subtracting out the COVID year, they are so low. It's concerning, actually, like how small a brand that is football wise. So I don't know how they could be additive, accretive at all. Like,
well, let's talk about that. For one thing, I want to promote. I have what is it? SSN UConn is going to be here Wednesday night, and we're going to talk about this. He's going to be here, and I want him to make the case for UConn. I'm a fan of UConn. I think their basketball program is top notch. I think it's interesting the way that people devalue one thing just because another thing isn't very strong. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I do think that there is some value just to say these guys are right now at the top of the heap when it comes to basketball. So we would have to talk about what the total vision is for Yormark as he's looking down the road. And we'll get to that. We have other clips that are going to be about like the 2026 negotiation for the college football playoff. We can talk about that more. But you know, everybody, your calculation is going to maybe conflict with somebody else's valuation that has UConn in the middle. I just want to say that
revenues in at all, right? It was just
right.
only brand valuations and
right. I understand.
If you paid attention to Patrick Craig's, he was a former media executive, and he's really involved in this.
I've heard his name, yeah.
Yeah, and then he made the comment this week. He had reiterated something that, you know, basketball is 15 to 20% of football, really,
right?
In the eyes of media companies and everything. We all know.
Yeah, Bob
that.
Thompson said that too.
Right, and like it's just reiterated again, just a reminder that really you're talking about a fifth of the value, maybe a sixth, guys.
Understood.
So like, that's just reality, you know. Like,
what do you think, Immaculate? What do you think about that?
Two things real quick about UConn. This is when it goes, for me, it's not so much a value add as it is a strategic add. Number one strategy for me, if I was Yormark, is I'm trying to earn favor from ESPN. UConn joining, this is where the ESPN flagship's massive headquarters is. So when you're that size and you have that much land that you have property taxes. And what they deal with the state of Connecticut, by getting UConn into a power program, which the state has, this is known for a long time. The state of Connecticut wants them to get UConn into a power conference, and they've wanted it for a long time. And the ACC fought back on it. So one of the major strategic ads for the Big 12 to do this is that they get ESPN a major tax break from the state. So why would they do that? I don't know. Let's say maybe the ACC is not going to exist in the future. The ESPN is going to have this ACC network thing going on here that they need to find a new home for it. If the Big 12 is this coast-to-coast conference with big basketball in the Northeast, now that actually helps get the ACC network turned into the Big 12 network. Anyways, it's a very big, long-term strategic thing to me. I think he's just speaking mostly to ESPN with that. When it actually happens, I don't know. I do think it will happen eventually, though.
This statement from Daniel Gygax, he's talking to Greg. He says if it's a non-football ad, he can see the value for UConn. Sure. But remember, UConn football in the Big East days. Now they've been to some New Year's Six bowls, so it's not like they've ceased to exist. It's just they've had a bad stretch here. So the perception is the reality, as we just spoke about. And so we'll have to see where that plays out. From the strategy standpoint, Yormark is decades down the road, guys. So anything we say right now, he might not agree.
They nuked the whole football program by going to the East. Like,
I know.
They made a strategic decision institutionally. I'm just wondering, like, are they going to change that perspective if they're a full member?
We'll find out, I think.
You got to ask them on Wednesday, Bomber. I'm serious. I'm interested in that. Like,
all right. Well, when we're done here, if we got time, we'll bring Moen on. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And not everyone agrees with that. Just as Pilgrim, our buddy Larry here, has said, he doesn't agree that that's the case. And it may not be the case, but this was a big open public talking point going back and found this for a couple decades. Secondly, someone in chat had a question, Justin Kahn, about the A5 thing we were talking about. So I think setting that tone right now could be helpful.
Yeah, please go ahead.
What that talks about is the autonomous 5. The moniker Power 5, P5 has been used for a long time. It was always kind of like a look down your nose at the G5 a little bit. It kind of has a bad connotation in these days. And what happened in 2015 was the NCAA gave autonomy status to the P5 that they could write some of their own rules in regards to athletics. They can't touch March Madness, and there's a couple other things, but basically they can write their own rules now. And things that they've wanted to do in the past they couldn't do, they can now. Yet there's reasons that we'll go into further on later that I think that they're trying to get to a point where they can now take advantage of those rules. But we're seeing, especially through these Joel Klatt interviews with Ryan Day, with Brett Yormark, they're switching to this terminology. They're not saying P5 anymore. They're saying A5. And I do believe that directly is referring to this new power and status that they have to create their own rules. So that tells you tip of the iceberg. That's what we see. The rest of it underneath is they are having talks behind the scenes on what rules to make, how to make them, and how do we get to the point where everyone within the A5 will vote on them. So
Do you want to go to the next video, Immaculate?
Yep, let's go for it. But I just wanted it for him and for anyone else in the chat that
appreciate
didn't
that.
understand what that was.
Laying that out, Immaculate. Super
That's
helpful.
the Autonomy 5.
Right. Thank you very much. And if you're new to the channel, we've got 86 people. That's fantastic, by the way. Please subscribe, give us a follow, a thumbs up, and give us some comments back so we can decide what shows to do in the future. Both you and I listen. We read the comments, so get them to us. And if you're new to the channel, you want to get your comment out, you can do a super chat or subscribe to the channel. The reader on the bottom of the screen will show you how to subscribe, or just go to the YouTube page and hit the join button. All right. Let's go to the next one here. I'm liking this Command Central stuff. Here we go. All right.
What is it? Is it the partner? Is it the number that you want to get to? Combination of the two? Could put it into words for me about what makes the right fit.
It's a great question. I don't want to say it's complex, but it is complex. We have guiding principles for expansion. Leadership is critically important. Cultural fit, geography, athletic performance, brand upside. There's lots of things that go into our decision making. Mm-hmm. And when I first took the job, and I have said it quite a few times since, I truly want to be a national conference. I want to be in 4 different time zones. I want fans from coast to coast. But again, it needs to fit within those parameters. Basketball is an important part of it too.
Yeah, see that.
All right. There you go. There's the next one, Immaculate.
And there it is. It's going to lead into the basketball talk here in the next one. But in this one, you're kind of starting to get an idea of where he wants to go. If you're someone wondering, where does the Big 12 want to go? What do they want to do? I think this was a very candid moment where he's feeling very confident at the media days of, this is what we want to do. Now, it's not highly detailed, but, some things he talks about coast to coast. It's very important. They want to be, in my opinion, is the gatekeepers of the autonomous conferences.
Right.
As someone said in here, is it the A5 eventually, A4, eventually A3? I'm saying A3, and I think that's exactly what I want to be, where there's the Big Ten, there's the SEC, and then there's them. And in all intents and purposes, they're in the vote. They're having a say in what's going on. And so people want to, talk bad about them or whatever, but they're there. They're going to be there, and they're not going anywhere, and they're not going to have their votes taken from them. So, if anyone is saying, hey, we want to get involved with that, here it is. He's saying what they're looking for.
Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think that pay attention to what he's saying here. So leadership, cultural fit, geography, athletic performance, and brand upside. I think that we owe it to everybody to have a conversation about each one of those bullets, honestly, and what that means. So I'm hoping that we could actually go there with a discussion, really what he could be meaning with each one of those, because it's relevant and it's what Yormark's looking for when he's thinking about expansion. It's not just coast to coast, that's part of it, but leadership, what does he mean by leadership?
Why don't you circle that, Ute, and we'll come back to it at the end.
Yeah.
You come back to that, but also I think you could make an entire show about just that, because this is important for a lot of people out there, for their schools or alma maters, or just who they're fans of. Is if you're trying to get into this is where it goes. And I know some people think that the only options that they have are schools that are in the G5 conferences, but I don't think that's the case. And I think we're going to see more of that in the coming future. I do think PAC is on the table. I do think in the future the ACC will be on the table. I can go into that more in the future about how that comes about. But here it is. It's right out on the table what they're looking for. So, yeah, I say you could make an entire show about that in the future.
We will.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
We'll do that.
It's worth it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
Will. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Let me get her on here. All right, here we go.
I've said that before.
And I don't want to jump in.
Yeah.
But, and I know this is I'm a college football guy, right? But I don't want to say the only one, because I know the other A5 commissioners value basketball, but they don't value basketball like you do. And you clearly shaped a conference that moving forward, arguably, but I would even sit here saying, as a football guy, you're the best basketball conference in America. Was that important to you? And why?
Well, it's important to me because I think it can be a catalyst for a lot of things moving forward. I mean, people think about my passion for basketball and they respond to it saying, well, there's not a lot of value to our media partners when it comes to basketball. But it goes beyond that. Basketball can be a catalyst for international expansion. And it can be a catalyst for a lot of the different growth opportunities that, we're vetting out. It's not just the TV deal. Do I think we're undervalued? Certainly I do. Do I think there's an opportunity down the road to maybe decouple football from basketball when we go back into that next TV cycle?
Yeah.
I certainly do.
That's an interesting piece.
Yes,
That
and-
decoupling. I
And
think that's
no
really
one's
fascinating.
thought about it that way. And, I have a lot of conversations with Adam Silver about the value of basketball and how basketball truly is a global sport and the international flavor and the engagement. And I will tell you that from a Gen Z perspective, the demo we're going after, that younger demo, they love basketball for a multitude of reasons. And he and I spend a lot of time talking about it. And he's given me a lot of guidance. And he believes I should double down on basketball, no different than I do, for all the right reasons. Now, that doesn't mean we compromise football. We understand the value of football. But if I can grow football and grow basketball, I'll be in a much better place long term.
Wow.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow is right.
You're right. That's a visionary leader for you right there.
Yeah, and he is a stud, by the way. Every time he talks, I've watched every one of his speeches that's been public, and he knows how to motivate people. So, Immaculate, what do you want to make out of that? That was really rich.
Yeah, the part that really jumped out to me when I was watching this for the first time was, so he's not only making deals with the NFL for, pro days and stuff like that, but he's now also talking with the NBA.
Right.
What's going to come out about that? He's not going into basketball stuff all that much. He's just kind of signaling. He's putting out the signal. We're going to do this. I mean, he's going to have some of the same stuff probably with the NBA. You're telling me that they're not. I pretty much at this point, I'm guaranteeing they're probably going to have some same things or partnerships with the NBA going forward. And that's so wide open because one more time, the Big Ten and the SEC are not going to do this. I think once all this gets settled for football in 2026 and everything going forward, he's going to go hard on this. He gave us a timeline. He's saying once this deal is over and they're moving into the next, that's when he's looking to do this split. Yeah. That's when you're going to look at schools. I'm just going to say some right now: St. John's, Seton Hall, Villanova, Georgetown. Get yourself up into that Northeast corridor. If you get that and you have yourself maybe a conference network and you can get that into New York. He's talked about that. He's talked about Rucker Park, UConn basketball. You start to build this brand. He's looking at the young folks that, quite frankly, is my blind spot. He's saying they're more into basketball than they are football. Yeah. This could be the thing of the future, and we just don't see it yet, and he does. I don't know. But
So let me interrupt you there, because Kadu, I think, who's a subscriber, a very loyal subscriber, his comment, I think, is spot on. He says, I think the big thing a lot of people are missing is that Yormark is in his element, that's in quotes, when dealing with media companies. I'm very certain that Brett Yormark has not made any moves without media partner blessing. I think that is 100% accurate.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Absolutely right. He's been talking to ESPN and Fox from the beginning, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's talking to Apple and Amazon and Discovery Channel. I think he's talking to everybody that's out there to provide something in 4 or 5 years for basketball. I can't tell you how excited I'm getting for BYU basketball, because with a little bit of support, BYU could be a monster in the basketball arena.
He's talking to Goodell. He's talking to Adam Silver from the NBA. He's probably talking to Joe Biden. This guy is talking to everybody. He's talking to everybody. And guys, let's think about this for a sec, okay? Because I'm gonna push back and I'm gonna open up this conversation about decoupling, okay? Because that's like the hot buzzword, right? Everyone's like, yeah, let's decouple because it's gonna make so much more money. I would like somebody to explain that to me, how it's going to make more money. Like, I don't understand how decoupling is going to all of a sudden bring in much more revenue than you're making right now.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and I'm not 100% certain this is the reason, but this is my thinking. In basketball, you have brands that are super strong. Let's just use UConn. Okay. But in football, the same school has almost no value, as you've already said. At
Right.
least using your quote. I'm not saying they don't have any value, but the perception out there is that UConn football, maybe not so much. By decoupling the two sports, you can have a school in your conference that might play in football, but they're not going to devalue the entire conference for media value, because in the basketball arena, they're going to offset it because their brand is so strong. That's where I think decoupling can really come out. Let's say in Oregon State, who maybe has a really good football program right now. When was the last time you saw Arizona or Oregon State talked about in basketball? Maybe it was last year. I don't know, but it's not very often. That school could carry the same amount of value without devaluing the other brand if you've broken those two pieces apart.
So would you have basketball only members in that case?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, and that's what
Okay,
Immaculate
that makes
saying.
sense to me now.
And that's
I
what I'm
didn't
getting at.
understand that.
Yeah,
So
you could bring in St. John's, Villanova, Creighton.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's how Gonzaga. And then now all of a sudden you have Big 12 conference, but half of it's football and the other half, maybe even bigger, is in basketball.
Yeah.
And leading into that, before you get those, you have, say, a Kansas, a UConn, and Arizona, if that happens, and then already perceived the best A5 basketball conference. So their basketball brand is perceived to be higher already as its own. So if you're going to have one that does this split, this would be the good one to kind of lead the way. And as you'll see throughout this interview, especially later on, he talks about wanting to be the leader in these ways. So it's a good person, a good conference to watch to kind of see where this is going. And the big guys, they can just sit back and watch. And if it works, then they could follow up and do the same thing.
Now, before
Sorry.
we get into that, actually,
Yeah, I've got to mute this. Hang on one second, Uter. Otherwise, okay, go ahead.
the one thing, well, the two thoughts that like I really took from the video, international, right? Yormark keeps talking about international. He's doing this Mexico thing. I mean, obviously basketball, he's got ideas. Like he sees serious growth internationally. And that's not something we talk about all the time, right? That can grow the brand of the Big 12. So that and the Gen Z comment, I know Immaculate, you spoke to that too, but Gen Z, I don't know the growth rates in like football versus basketball, but he seems to work pretty well. and so the Big 12 sitting pretty, if like they're growing basketball and it's becoming more and more popular over time. With this new decoupling idea and stuff, yeah, you could really see there'd be value driven here, in the 5 to 10 year, maybe 15-year future.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of point out that particular area there, is because he's obviously looked at this very in depth. This was a kind of a blind spot for me, so it's a new area. If that works out for them, that could be huge, and that's more medium term to long term for people in chat who are watching this going, how does this work out?
Right. I was reading that.
Maybe there's smaller schools and whatnot.
Right.
In those cases, the ones I listed, that's purely location. If he thinks getting into New York is a big deal for whatever reason, those schools around in that area are known. St. John's is right in New York. Villanova is in Philadelphia, but it's well known all the way up in the Northeast corridor.
Immaculate, let me interrupt you here really quick.
Yep, go ahead.
So, and this goes to Moen's, and this will answer everybody's questions when you're in chat and you're talking, why not this and why not that for AQ versus A5, P5 and all that fun stuff. The reason it matters today that Yormark's talking about this is he could be setting the stage for 5 years down the road. Yeah. There's nothing out there that says UConn has to come in now, that St. John's and they're going to break off basketball now. They can't. So they can't do it for 6 years? I think they can start talking about the new one. And at that point, then those schools will be there because, as Moen has said over and over again, they're not going anywhere. So just because Yormark's talking about it now does not necessarily mean that next week you're going to hear about these 5 ads that are just in basketball. And now the Big 12 has 28 basketball schools and only 6 football schools. It doesn't have to happen now. There's no rush to get this done. This is his vision moving forward. That should clear up the conversation in chat.
Yeah, definitely. For what it is, I don't think UConn is happening anytime soon. I just think it's chatter. If it's something that we could do if we needed someone to go along with the likes of, I don't know, Colorado, if, say, Arizona is not willing to go, but Colorado wants to go now. Then you could say, well, just for scheduling purposes in the short term, UConn has a football team. That'll work for now. We plan on doing them longer in the future, but it works for now. That's about the only way I see now. some of what some people are saying, the short-term perception probably actually wouldn't be that great if they pulled UConn. But if his long-term plan is strong with him, then it's probably not a big deal. But yeah, I don't think that that's happening right now.
You want to move to that next clip?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, let me bring it up.
And this is going in much deeper. This is actually where I am
Makes sense.
most
It's a real
interested.
possibility for you and others to have a vision and to build a postseason that is better for the sport. When you look at the future of the playoff in 26 and beyond, what does it look like to you?
Well, we haven't spent a lot of time on 26 and beyond because we're so focused on the 2 years following this year and that 2-year expansion period. But I will tell you, it gives us a blank canvas to your point, and I think we need to use a different filter and really look at it from a blank canvas perspective. And based on all the things we've learned, how do we make it better and more vibrant? How do we build the business and the brand and the experience both for fans and student athletes? Like it should be a whole new exercise.
Yeah.
And I think our key constituents and those at our table are thinking about it in that respect. And I think it's important to. It can't be what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We have a chance to reimagine, to reinvent, and to make this thing as good as we want it to be. And it's incumbent upon us to do that.
So I'm going to say before I even cut back to us that this is the thing that got Immaculate the most jazzed. He called me this morning. He's like, dude, we got to do this.
This is what I've been waiting for.
This is the one thing, and I don't
This
even
is
have
it.
it marked that this is his favorite. That's a lie. I actually marked it. But it is his favorite clip. So go ahead, Immaculate.
No, you guys, I want to see what you guys have to say, because once I go, it might go for a while.
I'm just hearing these words like reimagine, like expand. Like everything is just future oriented. Everything's bigger and more grandiose, idea centered, and everything. It's just speaking to his vision. To me, it just shows that he's got a million ideas that he wants to just, create and throw out there and stuff. And it's going to happen within the next few years and beyond. So, just more of a kind of what we've heard.
This told me that he's not leaving the job next week. I think he wants to have this job for a while. He's laid out on his table several benchmarks to reach so he doesn't get bored, because he's a high energy guy. If he was just working on this for right now, this deal to get the 4 schools integrated and then to potentially do some expansion, he would get bored and beat out the door because he has better things to be doing with his time. What this one clip told me, and I think if you want to, I could even play it again. But what this one clip says is, I'm here for a while. I think he's looking forward to doing that 2026 negotiation. He wants to be part of that. He wants to be sitting next to Sankey and whoever else is running these conferences and saying, hey, I'm just as strong, and this isn't going to be a 2-conference deal. And I think everybody that's a Big 12, or for that matter, a Pac-12 or ACC fan should hear that and know that they're going to have somebody backing them up, not to let these other 2 big conferences dominate the conversation.
So you think he's trying to create like the best of the rest idea?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I think he's been charting that out since he interviewed for the job.
So that's really kind of what he's speaking to, that vision of like adding other teams into the Big 12 and becoming that third power.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we can all look forward and see a time where the ACC could blow up and that you could have dissatisfaction in a Pac-12 in 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the timing is. I don't think he cares for the time, but I definitely think he believes that the group that he is currently overseeing across the United States could easily be that 3rd conference. All right, Immaculate, we've talked. What's your breakdown?
Right. Well, you guys know me. I'm the supposed 25-5 guy.
That's true. You are, yeah.
Immaculate, lay it out for everybody that hasn't heard you.
When I see this part,
summary.
we just had happen right here, and for everyone who's watching to know, we did skip forward a little bit because there was a lot of just kind of repetitive chatter. But what he did is he went from talking about the Big 12 to now he's talking about the bigger picture. This isn't just Big 12 right now he's talking. He is talking about the entirety of the A5 right now and what that big picture is, because we're talking about the national tournament. We're talking about 2026, and he's talking about a blank slate. He's talking about having a new vision for something entirely different. Some of the other comments I got here, the blank canvas perspective, and it should be a whole new exercise. Guys, this is not adding 4 more teams to a 12-team tournament, making it 16 teams, and then go.
Right.
That's not what this is, and that's not what's coming. I've been saying this, but you can only repeat yourself too much before you're the crazy man on the block. But some of the things that these conferences have been looking to do for a long time, I'm saying decades, conference tournaments, expansion of number of divisions that they have, but they couldn't get it through the NCAA. When they got the autonomy powers, they got the ability to do it. Well, why didn't they do it in 2015 then when they got these powers? Only thing I can look at and say is that the PAC, the ACC, and the Big 12 realized we're not going to get equal payouts as the Big 10 and SEC on this. We're not giving you the power to further distance yourselves from us in the money payouts. So that's why we're in consolidation. That's why we're having this movement towards 2, maybe 3 conferences to consolidate so that more schools, more votes can get the same benefit from this. And that's what I think he's doing. They're going to do something entirely different. And that's why I have myself 2026, or maybe a little after, what we're looking at is a national tournament that's actually half the size, in which these conferences are actually going to move to conference tournaments where they don't have to worry like how many schools we got in determines how much pay we get. It's
Right.
a conference tournament. You're getting all the pay. And when you're talking about total number of games, the postseason is the opposite of the regular season, and that the regular season, there's more supply than there is demand. The postseason, there's more demand than there is supply. That's where you expand to reach your demand. You provide that, that's when you get peak money. Someone else up here, Simon 277 earlier in there asked, where does all the money come from? It's pie in the sky. It is in the old terms of where all that they've looked to do is get in the regular season money, but it's not there because they already have enough content. They don't need it. What they need is more postseason content. And this would happen right after the regular season when demand is hottest. So that's why I bring that, because that's an old thing. But they could have new ideas that we don't know about. That,
So, Immaculate, are you thinking like a conference tournaments, like for football?
yeah.
Or like you would see in basketball for a conference tournament? Are you thinking more for like the NCAA, like the playoff expansion, I guess, just to kind of follow your train of thought?
One of the things that's stuck in my mind, has been burned in my mind, is that ever since Commissioner Delaney left, one of his greatest regrets of his time was that they lost control of their basketball property. That they lost it to the NCAA. If you look at their basketball tournaments, they're worthless. Their teams don't even want to win. It's just, to them, it's more chance to get guys injured the farther you go into it. Their seeds don't change that much in the big tournament, and you're more chance to get guys hurt. And their top 8 teams in their conferences are going in anyway. So who cares how you even do in those tournaments? Whereas the smaller conferences, that's for their AQ spot, so they care. So I don't foresee them going larger and bigger with the national tournament. I foresee them actually drawing it back, using the data and metrics that they get from these 2024 and 2025, which the first round has home games. Okay, these aren't all bowls. These are home games. So now they're going to see the difference between what it is to have these games in a bowl neutral site situation and in a home game situation, which a conference tournament would largely have. So I think that's why they did this with ESPN, because ESPN still has those 2 years of rights control. But of course, they're not going to complain against it, because now instead of just 4 teams, they're getting 12 teams and a whole bunch more games. So they make a lot more money during this. But the conferences are going to get the knowledge and the metrics that they need in order to create these conference tournaments. If that's what they're looking to do, that's what I think they're looking to do. And this is, from him, really the first someone who's dialed in that's saying, we're not doing what we've been doing. It's going to be something entirely different. And he says in here multiple times, he's a disruptor. He's about the one guy that's going to tell us all the truth in this. And in that case, everyone should like this guy, even if you're not a Big 12 fan, because this is someone who's actually telling us the vision. And that's not just a Big 12 vision. That's a A5 vision. That's a CFP college football playoff company vision, in which all the board of directors are the presidents, or is like one president of each conference, where they're directing that. So that's why that got me excited, because it's like, okay, so we're not really just going to add more schools and make the tournament bigger. It's going to be something entirely different from what we know.
So I sent an invite to Moen because I know he has thoughts on this. And it's nice to have, one good thing about our show is that we listen to a lot of different voices. It's just not one voice, it's multiples, and everybody has a different idea. Moen, you've heard all these clips so far. You saw the discussion we had about UConn. I'm going to ask you two questions. The first question is, as we talk about potentially bringing on schools at the Big 12, separating and only doing basketball maybe in 5 years, is that enough to keep the conference vital if they don't pick anybody up? That's the first part. And then the second part, what do you make of this discussion over the reimagining of the playoff format in 2026?
Depends on what the Big 12 wants to be. Does the Big 12 want to be the number 3 conference? Because when this all shakes out, there's going to be 3 conferences.
Right.
Do they want to be number 3, or do they want to give somebody else the possibility of becoming number 3? Because there's still 5A. There's A5 right now.
Right.
We know the SEC and the Big 10 are sticking around.
Yes.
Who's getting that number 3 spot? What works best for them? I don't think adding UConn does that. Regardless of Connecticut and ESPN and pleasing ESPN,
right.
The only thing that shows to me is UConn. Adding UConn shows me that the Big 12 is interested in being the conference that expanded with 5 G5s or independents.
And I think we've all said here, at least on this panel, that we agree with you with UConn now. I don't think there's anybody that disagrees. I think what we're talking about is that next step when the renegotiation happens, and we're talking about this potential to break away and do 2 separate contracts for basketball and football, essentially, for this one conference. I don't think not bringing on anybody now makes a big difference.
Right. I think if you can't get anybody that's a P5 right now, you stick.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You hold. You've got 18 at the table. You're going to hold. Let the deal or bust.
Okay.
And I agree with that.
5 years from now, decoupling. I don't agree with decoupling.
Okay.
I don't.
What's your reasoning? I'm curious.
Again, if you're going to be a number 3 conference, you have to be the best all-around athletic conference. When you're decoupling your basketball from your football, you think you're adding value, you're actually devaluing both products.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that or not. We haven't seen it before. We haven't seen it before, so how do we know?
We have seen it before. The Big East did it.
Well, they shut down football. They shut down their football, though.
But they also had a basketball only members when they had a football conference.
They did, but then they shut down football, so it was a non-starter.
They did.
That was never a thing, though.
Well, but no, there was times when they had a football and a basketball. They had the football conference running with basketball only members. It's been done.
Motivation is it just because it kind of feels like there's not stability and it feels like a little bit Frankensteinish. Having
you
like
can't serve. I don't think you can serve 2 masters. You're an athletic conference. You have to keep all your athletics under the same umbrella.
We're only talking about media deal, though. We're not talking about the way the conference runs. We're only talking about TV.
But media deal is perception, guys. If you're saying that we've got our basketball only members in the Big 12, I think it devalues the perception of the Big 12.
Interesting.
I can see it.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree or disagree. I just don't know that we know yet.
It's like you've got loose affiliations with some schools, but you're not like full affiliations, right? So
but
like
I don't know that that's how the perception.
Media days and stuff. It's just a weird dynamic.
Not
everybody's equal, in other words, right?
But it's TV. We're only talking about a media deal, not the way the conference runs,
but
not the way they handle. Okay, we can agree to disagree.
So
We
with
can-
Right, but
this,
you have to. It has to be about how the conference runs, because how are you going to divide payout? You're going to pay your
No.
basketball members the same as your
No.
football and basketball members.
No.
If I
We're
may,
only talking.
Well-
Yeah, go ahead, Immaculate. Go ahead.
what I think he's talking about here is you're going to have possibly basketball only schools. And when we say basketball only, we're talking about money making sports. Like we've seen this with Gonzaga. They've been talking about them. They play other sports, but you're talking about your money making sports. So in my opinion, what the contract would be was basketball and all other sports would be in this one contract. And then you'd have a specific contract for football, because what they don't want to do is bring in a bunch of schools that don't play football who end up getting some football money.
Right.
That's going to stay with just the schools that play football. So the majority of their sports would all be on this other contract, which we call just basketball, but it's really the majority of it. So say they do end up having a network for the conference. If I'm familiar with the Big Ten network, and that has a lot of different sports on it, a lot of different variety and things to see. So it wouldn't just have basketball on it, but it would have these other sports, and then maybe some football too. We're going to have to wait and see where his vision is on this. But I think what he's trying to do is be able to open up the possibility of having schools like a Gonzaga, having schools like the ones I just briefly mentioned before. So that way you're not having an internal fight over how much schools get paid. Because once you start to bring in those schools with the football money, that's the problem. And I think that was a problem for the Big East. But I also would say in the Big East, to comparison with this, you're talking about two different time periods with media opportunities and possibilities. I don't want to say it's not a good comparison, because I don't know. But I do kind of get the feeling of a little bit of apples and oranges. It could be a problem, as Moen is saying. I don't know. But I do believe that he's probably looked into enough, and he's in that realm that if he's looking to do it, I'm just going to sit back and wait and see if it's viable or if it doesn't happen. It could all just be talk now. But that's what I think, is that it's to allow these other schools to come in and expand themselves. Once they've got their football set and they're done with that, how do we continue to grow even beyond that? That's my thoughts on it.
it sounds like we're talking about decoupling football and not basketball, or else you could say, in other words, breaking away football. Because you'd have everybody aligned and going to the Big 12 media days and everything, but then you'd have the football only members. I think that's going to create some divisions within the conference and stuff, because you have high and mighty football members and the basketball members. It creates a power dynamic that might fracture the league. That's something
It's quite possible. Moen brings up good examples of the Big East. I didn't realize they played. I thought they shut down football and just played basketball. So I was wrong on that. And he obviously has seen it, because he's from that part of the country. So I'm going to defer to him. All I'm saying is I don't think we should preconceive those notions and say for sure it can't until whatever comes out comes out. I just don't like the idea by making a blanket statement. No, it will not work. I have an aversion to that. We don't know.
Bomber, tell everybody about BYU's experience. I know you were in Independence, but you had some similar experience with playing football independent only and being affiliated with West Coast Conference. Like, how did that work? I mean,
I don't think there was a problem at all. Actually, you might get diverse ideas, but they had to put basketball somewhere. And they weren't as successful in the WCC as they could have been. They had recruiting shortfalls and other things, but that didn't impact the way the school ran its sports. Just being an independent, it didn't have anything to do with the West Coast Conference operation. So inside the school itself, there might, and I don't know if Ryan or Jeff are online. In fact, if there's a BYU member that is online that knows more about how they've dealt with it in-house, I'd certainly listen to that experience. But from what I know personally, for the fans, all we wanted was to have the football team have a home, just because it's better to have a place to be. But would it have bothered me if the football ended up in the Pac-12 and basketball had to stay for whatever reason in the West Coast Conference? I don't think anybody would have cared.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Moen, I wanted to give you a chance to finish.
Yeah, no, I think you're creating too much headaches trying to split your media deal. I don't think the
Okay.
value you add is enough to deal with the headache of trying to negotiate two media deals.
Right.
Like you
Right.
said, you're going to have people who are saying, well, we're football and basketball, you're basketball only.
Right.
You create a class system, which I think just doesn't work. And I think for the Big 12, at least in my opinion, they need to keep their eye on the prize here. They need to be that A3.
And I think in the short term they are.
Right,
believe
right.
that.
But they
I
have to
believe
keep their focus on football.
I agree with you. I don't think anybody here disagrees with that.
Yeah, they've got to keep their focus on football and get P5 members in there and try and get the ACC to dissolve, because, I mean, right now the ACC is going to end up with a little better payouts than the Big 12
Right.
before it completely implodes. So, I mean, the ACC still has a fighting chance. They're not dead yet. I know we all like to pick and choose and say, oh, I want Georgia Tech. Me personally, I want Georgia Tech in the Big Ten, and I want Miami. I want Notre Dame.
No.
They're not dead yet.
There's
it's
no
not,
pick and choosing in the ACC.
And it's not up to us. Nobody here is making a choice.
But
yeah.
the thing about the ACC perspective, though, is that they're not comparing themselves to the Big 12. They're comparing themselves to the Big 10 and SEC. That's where
well, and that's what the Pac-12 did too.
Yeah, it did. But the difference is that there's two big differences between the ACC and the Pac-12. The Pac-12's got great brands, bad viewership, and bad locations in terms.
Yeah,
ACC, on the other hand, has the opposite problem. They've got some very weak brands that still can get you a decent number of people in those markets to view if you have them up against a good team. So,
well, it's a problem to have too many teams in your group that are attractive to other people. So,
but you have a strong number of schools in the ACC who I don't think they care about their comparison to Big 12. They want Big 10 SEC money. They want Big 10 SEC coverage. They know they're not going to get in the ACC because the ACC is caught up till 2036.
Well,
and that's why I say the only movement that we see from the ACC in any time in the near future, especially by 2026, is if the entire ACC moves.
Right.
Or if there's some that are left behind, it's by choice because I don't want to go into the weeds with further theories on it. But I don't think that anything can happen by 2026 that's legal, like, breaking the gore or schools coming out. The timeline doesn't match that. They need
we'll find out.
Yeah, but if they're going to do it, they need to be able to announce it by 2024 in order to be ready for 2026.
I don't know.
So
that's another unknown. I don't know that we can answer that now.
It's not out there, but I'm just saying I don't think that the ACC is really looking to compete with the Big 12.
We got a few super chats.
Yeah, we do. Pac-12 Pilgrim Larry is here. He says, does the NBA run the same period as college basketball? They overlap, right?
They do.
Aren't they generally about the same time? I think NBA maybe starts a little earlier than college basketball in November. Am I right with that, guys?
It's pretty close. There might be a few weeks, maybe a month, but yeah.
For the most part, it overlaps the entire season.
Yeah.
And then Opie's here. Hey, Opie's in the house.
What's up, Opie?
As like Tiger Woods sizing up his shot, I believe Brett Yormark has 5 years to size up the college basketball. We were just discussing that, and he thinks he's going to do it. So,
Opie, what do you think about decoupling? I want to hear Phil's thoughts in the chat. I mean, this is the best conversation about decoupling I've ever heard. Seriously, everyone says, "Oh, let's decouple and make a bunch of money," but we just got real practical on how this could look.
Right.
I blow up. So I want to hear people's thoughts.
Immaculate. Let's jump ahead a little bit here. Give me 2 more videos to run, and then we'll open it up to comments and calls.
If we're doing that, I'd probably skip the NIL transfer portal part because that's
going to be a different show.
We'll get stuck in that for
we're not going to do that today.
Basically, after that, you're looking at like the 1735 spot.
Okay, let me jump ahead, guys. Just give me 1 second. I'm getting pretty good at this curation stuff, by the way.
Yeah, this is a little short one, and then you'll have the end portion that you can just kind of go through and stop whenever you want.
Okay, give me one sec here. All right, I need him. Okay, it's unmuted. Here we go.
Your perspective has been so refreshing from my seat, outside looking in, obviously. But for so long, people that sat in your seat, and this is not a knock, but they came up through administration. They've been kind of lifelong administration people, if you will. Now it's very different than that. Other than Greg, everybody that's entering into these seats as commissioners have an outside perspective. Tony Petitti being the newest one in the Big Ten, an outside perspective, a strong media perspective and outlook. How has your background?
Oh, shoot. Sorry,
got
let me get
us.
past this. Yeah, they got me. Doggone it. All right.
Impacted the way that you view this position as the commissioner?
It's a great question.
All right, you have me cutting it off there, Immaculate. Do you want me to let it run?
That was keep letting that run.
Okay.
That was just the question so that
Sure,
people
hold
can
on.
understand that going forward.
But when I look back on my first year, I think many of my skill sets were transferable. Every commissioner's job is different, and it needs a different set of skill sets. This conference needed someone like me, someone that was willing to disrupt, innovate, create, look at the conference a little differently, build its business and brand and profile. And I'm the right guy for the job, candidly. I think it's been a wonderful fit. I'm not sure I'd be a fit to run other conferences, candidly. This was
Maybe too aggressive.
maybe too aggressive, which is perfectly fine.
That's fine, right? Yeah.
But this was the right place for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the brand in any way, shape, or form was distressed, because it wasn't. Nothing was broken. But this was a conference that needed to get better and do things differently. And even during the interview process, I sensed from the board they were willing to pivot away from the traditional. In fact, I'm not sure they had any other choice. Just on the heels of Texas and Oklahoma leaving, a potential upcoming TV deal, they needed to create a different narrative and profile.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah, I'm going to stop it there. Go ahead.
Your stream looks like it just got stopped on YouTube.
I did stop it.
No, it says stream unavailable, suspended for policy violations.
I saw it.
What? It's
Copyright-
still recording. I don't know.
We might have the copyright police.
Yeah, I think I thought that by doing the stopping and talking that we'd be.
Where does it?
Good
The
on
show is still running, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. It says live.
Anyway, everyone in the chat, can you hear what we're talking about?
If you can hear us, then I guess we're on. We're not. We gave Joe Klatt credit for this, so we're certainly not trying to take anything from him. But if it's somehow got flagged, I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah.
Did it actually stop?
I'm seeing that on my end too, Nate.
What's it say?
It's going to be stream suspended due to policy violation. You're going to have a copyright ding in there on your account. But if you need help, I can walk you through how to get.
Yeah, what do you have to
off
do?
of
What's
there.
the process?
Log into your YouTube Studio dashboard,
Right.
and you'll see a spot up there where it's telling you what the violation is and when you violated it.
All right.
And you can basically, I would submit it as fair use since we're providing commentary over it.
Right. Where the hell's my phone? Oh, it's right here. All right, I'll do that. Thank you for telling me. I didn't know that.
I want to say something in the chat that just to kind of.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, please.
Well, I've been talking with them a little bit here.
It says, due to copyright match, your stream was interrupted.
Yeah.
We discussed an amazing interview. This is streams are okay. That's the email notification. What's the next thing? It says, due to a copyright match, your stream was interrupted. Streams are interrupted when copyright content is detected after copyright material is no longer being streamed. Streams automatically re-enable. Well, I'm not streaming it. It's not on the stream.
Yeah, we might just need to shut it down, Bomber, for tonight, and just kind of figure this out for the future. But I don't think that we're live anymore. I don't think
You
we-
might
Why
be
does
able
it?
to,
Why does it say live?
you might be able to shut this down and start another one, and we can just talk about it. I have some notes, and
What do you guys think? Should I send the chat and say we're going to wind this down, or we're going to keep trying? I mean, we're losing folks. So I got a jet here in about 10 minutes.
Right, I know.
Continue.
This
That's
is
fine.
new to me. I've never run into this.
You're back on. You're back on.
Oh, I'm on
Back
now.
on. It'll. Yep.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. So I am a rookie. Everybody's laughing at me right now. Copyright violation. I apologize, Joe Klatt. I apologize. We were trying to
back
do.
on.
We were trying to do fair commentary. I apologize to everyone involved. Brett Yormark, I apologize. This is actually kind of fun. I kind of feel like I finally arrived. How about that? I've done my first copyright violation. I've finally arrived as an influencer.
Rivals has been suspended, Bomber. Just like
well, it's your fault.
We're causing issues out here.
Oh my Lord, this is too funny. All right, hey, for
at least we got through
watching,
the important stuff, right?
That's right. For everybody watching the show, thanks for sticking with us.
Seriously, thanks, guys.
I have no idea.
We have 80 people in the house, so thank you for sticking with us.
Thank you so much. Wow, we're going back up again. It's up to 82. Okay, we won't do any more video, and I've learned my lesson. How about that? Yeah. All right, let's cut it off. I've totally taken it.
Opie says, "Welcome to the Big
12." They've absolutely shut us down. Anyway, so let's have a conversation. You'd has to go in a couple minutes, but I really wanted to sort of flush this out. At the end of the day, Brett Yormark's laying out a lot of benchmarks for us, right? He's saying we want to do some renegotiation for maybe basketball and football. We maybe want to talk about what they're going to do in the 2026 college football playoff. Out of everything that we heard before it was cut off from Brett Yormark, what's your number one takeaway? And we'll just start with Moen. What's your number one takeaway from that?
I think it was a very good interview. I think he said a lot of good things. But like I said earlier, got to keep his eye on the prize here. You're going for number 3. It's good to be a disruptor, and he was right. He was the best person for that job. He took that ship and steered it perfectly to get it to where it is today, and that is very commendable. But there's still uncharted waters ahead, and I hope he makes the right decisions.
All right, KD gave us some money for my lawyer fees. That's nice. I appreciate that, KD. Thank you very much. I'm going to need it. Anybody else have donations they want to give me? So when I call my lawyer, I have a little bit. Anyway, we can turn that off. All right, let's go to you. What's your takeaway?
Yeah,
you got to go.
Yormark might not work anywhere else in the A5. I'm going to change the language like we're talking about the A5.
Right.
I mean, it's aggressive approach. I don't think it's a fit anywhere else. I don't think it would work in the Pac or the Big Ten. So he is in the perfect place, and he's got all the ears, and he's really turned this thing around. So, yeah, he's got momentum, and he's going to keep building it, and he's going to keep swinging. He's going to swing. This guy's relentless, and he's not going to stop until, going after teams and growing this thing, because he wants to be the third power conference, the A3 here. So that's what he wants, and he's going to do it, and he might get it done. We'll see.
Really quick, let me interrupt here. Greg Swaim just posted this. And Greg, do you have the reference for this? Could you give us the link? Because I'd really like to read the article. It says Pac-12 has been offered both Tuesday and Wednesday evening linear game. Are we talking about football here? Not from ESPN or Fox Sports, but by the CW?
Greg, jump on real quick. I think Greg might be joking,
Greg, let me give you the link, Greg. Hang on one second, because you got to explain this to us.
Can I say something real quick?
Please go ahead. Yes.
First off, I'm going to blame Moen Vision on this, because I think that if he would have said nice things about his basketball plans, Mr. Yormark would have not reached down and smacked us down. So, yeah.
All right, Greg.
You're getting the blame with that,
more
Moen.
Lawyer fees here. Cougar Tracks.
Bailing me out.
$4 for lawyer fees. Yes.
All right, Greg Swaim, I gave you the article, man. Join us, please, because this is interesting, because his next comment says, confirm the Pac-12 has been offered both. The CW.
Lastly, real quick, everyone, I just wanted to urge you, go and finish watching this video after we're done here.
Oh, yeah.
In entirety. But the rest of what goes on and what he talks about, I actually found it to be very good. It's very interesting. He talks about the conference and how much it went from being like this traditional, very conservative moving conference to just fully supporting him, backing this vision, and actually pushing him to go harder and faster. So I found it to be very interesting. It's kind of a shame we didn't go through it, but I definitely urge people to in your own time later on, go and finish that video.
I just posted the link to Joe Klatt's article. It's on Twitter. I'll repost it on Twitter. So, Joe, don't sue me. I apologize. Yeah, I'm a rookie.
Yeah, if you watch that later, make sure you don't stream it.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, I'm totally joking with Mo and Vision on that.
No, he knows that.
Hey guys, I've got one last thought here. Then I've got a Jeff.
Where's Greg at? Greg, you got to join. We want to
Greg's not
hear.
going to be able to jump on.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey,
Okay.
so Yormark did say that he has a whiteboard of ideas.
Right.
And he carries these ideas around all the time, but put it on his phone. He looks at them. He thinks about how to execute the ideas. I just like, this is a hypothetical. I want to hear each one of your responses. What's the number one objective, number one thing that he's written on that whiteboard and like circled?
Kill the Pac-12.
Oh my gosh, seriously? Oh, here it comes. Hang on. Oh, wait. Greg, this better not be it. It's on Cougar Board. The only thing I can find was Greg, if it's on Cougar Board, we don't do Cougar Board. I don't subscribe to Cougar. Yeah, that's all it is Utah fans causing trouble on Cougar Board. Let me see if I can find a different reference. Anyways, keep going. I just wanted to see if I can find it again.
Immaculate, what's that number one objective that's circled 5 times?
I have a hard time arguing with Moen on that one.
Right.
If I have to come up with something else, though, just to add something else to the table, I would say probably see which properties of the ACC you think fit best with you and would be willing to work with you if and when ESPN starts pushing or working with them to move them into like the SEC and the Big 12 because they have properties. I would say that, but generally I agree with Mo and Vision. It's working on the Pac. It's working on Colorado.
Yeah.
I think that was a troll post is what I think. Somebody posted that and I think it was sarcastic. Here comes Pac-12 football on Tuesday and Wednesday. That's what I think.
Action, yeah. The Paction.
Yeah. Paction. Anyway, ask me your question again. I'm sorry. I was reading.
Yeah, so Brett Yormark has he puts all his ideas on a whiteboard and looks at them and thinks about them all the time. What's he circled 5 times as the number one objective? What's like the number one thing he thinks about all the time to get done?
Today? Right now I think his goal is to try to secure somebody from the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I think UConn and Gonzaga, these other ideas, all the Big East, that's forward. I don't think that's for now. I think anything that we've been reading in the last while that said that UConn was imminent, I think was propaganda. Like all this stuff has turned out to be propaganda to try to get a way people to move. The pressure that Colorado put on the Pac-12 by saying we're going to see the thing tomorrow had to be a play to try to leverage and find out more information so that they could then make a bigger decision. So I just don't think anything basketball happens now. I think Moen is spot on with the way everybody feels about it. And I think that's also Brett Yormark.
I think that Cougar Tracks is saying that the number one thing's basketball conference for you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Here's another one here. So being number 2 in non-media deal revenues, perhaps.
Great comment right there. Yeah, absolutely. He's got to pump up that revenue. He's going to come up with some innovative ways, even if it means actually pairing themselves with a, one of these gambling sites online. I mean, now they're doing stats, but if you could be the official betting parlor of the Big 12, I know it's different for every state, but by God, in Ohio, you just get inundated with those online betting things.
Hey guys, I've got to drop, but thanks for the conversation, and always go Utes. Take care, guys.
All right, see you later. I like this comment from Two Master. I want to give credit to Greg Flugar. I love and appreciate all his hard work, and he said a while ago that the Act 13 starts tomorrow, July 25th. So I would really encourage everybody to follow PATC. That's Peek Around the Corner, Greg Flugar, and I would really watch this week. A lot of things moving around. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get to a few more comments. Yeah, Greg said he's still working on a story. I don't know if it's this Tuesday, Wednesday thing. I think that was just. I'm warning everybody. Cougar board.
That
just
sounds
not
like a
good.
joke.
I think it is a joke. I want to bring up this guy. Hey, Trent Brown. My brother's name is Trent Brown. So if you're my brother, you should be rafting on a river right now, not listening to my show. But he says, do whatever it takes to be number 3, poach, expand, sell gambling data, which is what Moen was just online with as well. So I think we totally got it dialed in. Let me see if I can get to a few more subscriber comments. Let's see. Oh, geez. I mean, there have been so many great comments today. Yeah, let's see. Mr. Monkey says, number one thing is to prove Tony Altimore wrong. Maybe. Might be 1A or 1B. That's possible.
I actually like what Glenn Lumen had to say there with corporate sponsorships.
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. Yeah.
Bring in because that's an easy way to get some more money. I mean, I don't know how exactly he would do that, but if they can, that's straight money right there.
What, naming rights for your championship game? I mean,
right.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, across the board.
Patches on your shoulder if you're a football uniform. I mean, they can sell the naming rights to pretty much every event.
Rivalry games.
Yeah. Rivalry games, I think, is a huge untapped resource. But to really take advantage of those, you have to have rivalries. And right now, the only ones that I could really talk about today are BYU, TCU, and Baylor. And that's because they're the private institutions in the group, and they have history with all three of them have history. I don't know the others, the hateful eight, but those schools.
Yeah, but the nice thing with new rivalries is, you've got corporate sponsors who could jump right in there and name the trophy. I mean, let's say BYU's playing Baylor. You could have, I don't know, Bush's Baked Beans, BYU.
It's possible.
BYU. I mean, there's
One of the ideas I kind of had, it comes later in this video. They're talking about being forward thinking with the production of watching the games and what Joel Klatt would like to see, or some things maybe taken from the NFL in terms of hearing the guys. Or, if say you have like a cam that's on the inside of the quarterback's helmet and you get your quarterback cam brought to you by, whomever. Just all these little things that they might do that are above and beyond the other conferences. And then you get corporate sponsorship on those. Like, this is the whatever view brought to you by like Dos Equis or whatever. So I think that they're going to try and do things that we don't normally see go on in the college sports. And then, you could attach corporate sponsorship to it. And I mean, people will be like, that's kind of, questionable, but hey, they've got to make up the pay differential between them and the other two A2 conferences. So
I think he'll continue to do that. I like this from Laura Weiss. Big 12 basketball in Mexico brought to you by Dos Equis. Yep. You know what would be funny about that is if BYU ended up in the final. I could just see that. BYU's in the final, and here BYU, Kansas, and brought to you by Dos Equis. and also FanDuel. That would be brilliant. I'm looking forward to those beer commercials. I think they would be awesome in BYU games. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of Mormons in Mexico, though. I mean,
it's millions. Yeah, it's over a million.
Tickets.
Yeah, I think it's 1.2 million is the number in Mexico. Yeah. Starry, I'm not sure if I don't know you, Starry. I appreciate you being here. Thanks, and please subscribe. He says, gentlemen, congrats on the great show. Refreshing to see others take a deeper look into Brett Yormark's vision. This was all Immaculate's idea and strategy for the Big 12. It's clear to me that the game is about becoming number 3 for the semi-short term. All of us agree with you, Starry. There's no doubt about it. I don't know. Are there any other comments here you guys want to talk about before we sign off?
That, or if you wanted to take any callers or whatever you want to do. I know you'd mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, I could do that. I got 20 minutes. If you guys want to stick around, here, I'm going to put the link out. If you guys want to join the show, there, just click on that link in the.
I know you had at least one guy that wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, I'm ready. I got 20 minutes. We can talk for 20 minutes. Let me take this off here so everybody can see our Twitter. While we're waiting for somebody to join the show, We thank you all for being here. This is a show about you and not about us. Trying to be a voice for all the people that don't have a voice right now. I encourage everybody to follow Greg Flugar and follow everybody that's in the Your College Sports Connection group. There's several of us that have gotten together, and we're trying to really get the profile up for all these social media influencers that, aren't the journalists that everybody wants to put a tag on. And we certainly represent each other. So if you want to go to that group on Twitter, it's YCS Connection, and I'd love to have you there. Also, I want to shout out Immaculate and Moan for being resources on our shows, both this and Big 12 Mafia. I really appreciate them being a part of this, and I want to make more friends. So if you guys have more comments and stuff, send me a DM. We can certainly go from that. A few other things, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment or suggestion. We read all those and really want to try to grow the show. Today we're at 100 and I think we were at 108 before the copyright thing hit us, which is huge for us. That's a great show. And that's all because of you guys. And I really, really appreciate it. And the last thing is, if you want your comment read guaranteed, do a super chat, or you become a subscriber, and those chats stand out to me green, and I try to get to those as much as I can. Let's do that. Let's work backwards through. Mark Ruckert here says BYU will host the Jello Invitational in Mexico City every year. I think that's funny. And then Vernon Sheldon says Jello shots. I think that's funny. Kadu says the most interesting game in the world. Stay thirsty, my friends. I can all these beer commercials just stick in my head. It's amazing. Big 12 is Netflix in 1997. Pac is Blockbuster. What do you? I saw that earlier on Twitter. What do you guys think about that comparison?
I thought that was a very good comparison. I don't know if we didn't really get into that too much here, but I think it's right in that they're trying to do something in the future, and they're talking about bowl games not being a good part of the future and the playoff situation. My personal belief is that there will be room for bowl games, but not in the playoff.
Right.
I think that the playoffs will be, as we know it, will be an extension of conference tournaments, but that's not going to include every team. So there still will be some room for bowl games, because one thing that's not talked about much in terms of why these schools, and especially the coaches and the teams like the bowl games, is it gets them extra practices. They can start to practice their team for the next year to see who's going to do stuff. So I don't think they're going to want to get rid of the bowl games ever, but it's not going to be as we know it.
At the end of the video, or in the middle of the video, I can't remember where, he talks about bowl games, and he thinks there's too many bowl games. I think what he'd rather see is more valuable bowl games, but less of them. And that would, I think there's a lot of advantages to that. All right, Kaufman, thanks for joining the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about, what you guys were talking about and what Yormark had to say. And it's one of those things where, he's looking into all this stuff, and it's nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. It's going to be one of these things that it's down the road a ways. But if you start looking at them now, you can have a deal that's going good and all that. So, but, my wife is from the Philippines, and when we were over there, basketball's everywhere over there. Basketball internationally, and you look at all the players in college basketballs that are internationally. Well, if you have it to where they're being shown over in those other countries, now the families can watch their kids play. So, I mean, I think that's more of what Yormark is looking to do, is making it to where it's easier for him to get those games overseas, because it's just one of those things. I mean, I've seen my wife, she's Filipino. She watches Filipino stuff, live stuff. And I'm starting to see KU Jayhawk stuff showing up because of Remy Martin.
Interesting.
So when you start seeing college stuff starting to show up for basketball and other deals, the college basketball trying to break it off so you can do more international, I think does make sense, but it's going to take time to get that all figured out.
I want to call out Glenn Luman, who's also a follower of the show. He lives in the Philippines as well. And so I know there is a lot of sports coverage in the Philippines area. BYU has broadcast there for years on its BYU TV network. But the international reach of basketball is something football can't touch.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
I think that's why Yormark is looking at that as an untapped resource, right? Uh,
Yes.
uh, but to keep that AQ or that A5 status, that's all football. So as
Yes.
long as we're putting everything in a frame of mind where we're thinking what gets us ahead the most, football has to be number one.
Yeah. I mean, here in the States, you're absolutely right. But, like Pilgrim was asking earlier about, we have more sports going on at the same time during the fall, winter, and early spring
Right.
than we have any other time of the year. I mean, during the summer, all we have really is baseball that's going on and MSL or MLS if you
Right.
watch it. But those are really the only two sports during the summer. But baseball also oversized with football, basketball, and I mean it's still going on late in September, October.
Baseball goes into the end of October now.
Oh, into October. I couldn't remember when it ended.
Yeah, it goes to
So
the end.
you're overlapping. That's why Fox can't really do much with football during that time frame because they're covering Major League Baseball.
Right. But
So
it's also part of the reason why they wanted basketball from the Big 12, though,
yes,
is to pick up that gap after. You're right.
exactly. That's exactly why they did what they did because they
Right.
want more basketball. And you look at like NBC, they're trying to get back into the NBA.
Right.
There's a lot of. I mean, the NBA brings a lot of money to the media partners.
Immaculate, Moen, what do you guys think about that?
In terms of the expanse that they could go to with basketball in the future
Yeah.
around the world, I clearly think that they're looking at that. I mean, just he's talked about Mexico, and in this he talked about around the world basketball. I think that he's probably looking into Europe for basketball. You could look in the NBA right now and see just how many Europeans are there now. I would dare say that Europeans might now be more interested in basketball than they would be in American football.
Basketball is catching on. What do you think, Moen?
I agree 100%. Especially getting over to Europe, you might be able to get some of those kids out of some of those Balkan countries.
Right.
Your Serbians, these monsters that just seem to get drafted to the NBA at 18 and they're 7 foot tall. I mean,
right.
Getting yourself out there might actually be able to get you some of those kids recruited over into college programs here in the U.S.
I didn't know this stat, but Glenn reminds me that there's 800,000 members of the church, the LDS church in the Philippines. Now, most of them are natives, so I'm not sure how much they're watching BYU sports, but if it's available in country, there will be more conversion. I know this. So you can travel anywhere in the world, and if you're wearing a BYU hat, people are going to say hi to you.
But Glenn just also put in the chat that basketball is the sport there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Anything else, Kaufman?
No, that's all I wanted to say was
Okay.
because you look at the media, you look at what the media partners are looking at as far as what they're willing to pay for. Well, right now, football and basketball are coupled. So if you've got one but not the other, they're not going to be willing to pay as much, right?
Right.
And when with the Pac-12, what did they really lose when UCLA and USC said they were going to the Big Ten?
No, they lost LA.
Well, no, they lost more than just LA. They lost the biggest football name in the Pac-12 in USC, and the biggest basketball brand in the Pac-12 in UCLA. They lost those two things on top of the LA market. So they lost a lot more than people realize. And that really devalued it. Because now the only basketball school you have in the Pac-12, to be honest, is Arizona.
Yeah. It's true. You're right.
And that's the whole thing. And it's sad because I remember back in the day, the Big 12, Pac-12 Hardwood Challenge. And those were some great basketball games between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. But the Pac-12 kind of let their basketball fall off. So, That's why I think it's one reason why it's so hard for the Pac-12 to get a media deal right now is because of the fact that you're only buying football right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mr. Monkey says, which is why UA should leave. UA and Colorado, obviously, they've been on. I don't know about offered, but they've had conversations. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, Kaufman. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll see you later.
I've been wanting to get on and talk to you guys, but you guys come on. I farm. I have another job to help support the farming, and I've just been super busy. So I'm catching the reruns versus being live, and I've been wanting to join the membership to help support the program because I really enjoy these conversations, and it's great to be able to get in and talk every now and again.
I love having you here. You're a great member of the community, and I want you to know you're valued. So you can always send me a DM if you want to set up a show where you just talk about something. Let me know, and we can talk.
Yeah, but that'd probably be more focused around basketball than football. So
okay, all right. Well, maybe we'll talk in October, November then. That'd be great.
That's what I'm thinking. That'd be about the best time for me to do it. So when basketball season is starting to really ramp up. So all right,
no problem.
We'll go from there.
I appreciate you.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Later.
See you later. Bye. Let's see. Anybody else? I've copied the link in a couple times. If you want to join us, we got a couple more minutes. Just click on that link. This note from Larry here. He says, "See, John, will do. I'm trying to decide if I want to make it, take an administrator job that was offered part-time. I am set to do. It's good money." Larry, you have everybody here who wants you to get a good job. So you have all our support. Let us know if we need to give you a resume bump. All right, let's see who else here.
If I could say something in regards to what Starry said earlier.
Yeah, please.
I do think that, and this isn't just for Big 12 folks to be paying more attention to this. I think everyone should pay more attention to what Yormark is doing and saying, whether or not you're a Big 12 fan or not. Some of what was in here, I tried to point out how this is actually more to do with everyone as a whole rather than just the Big 12.
Right.
But at this point in time, I have to put him as the number one person to watch where you might get some snippets and points about what's going on. He seems to care less about if he upsets someone by saying these things.
Right.
He seems to really only be answering to his administrators, his presidents, and they seem to be giving him full reign to just go out and do this, because as it was in this little piece here, he said they felt like they were, basically backs against the wall, and they really had to do this just to stay alive. So that's why I'm watching it so close, and that's why when I saw this, I really wanted to do this with you, because I think everyone can learn something from this.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And the response and the number of people that have watched the video, and we'll watch it in the coming days, we'll figure that out. I guarantee you we're educating not just the people that have been on tonight, but a lot of people because of the topic. And Brett Yormark is a stud, and they want to hear him talk. Yep. Vernon, I like Vernon Sheldon's comment here. He says, Colorado's moving closer. I hear it every day at work. So are you in Colorado, Vernon? I'm sorry if I don't remember that right. I apologize. Alumni and fans are tired of the pack. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Did you guys see Jim Williams tweet this morning about tweet or X or whatever we're calling it now?
Yes.
About Notre Dame and the Big Ten and Washington and Oregon.
I did see that, and let me see if I can recall it. You guys cover for me here just for a second. Let me see if I can pull that up, because I did see it, but then I didn't have it to talk about because we were doing this other thing, so I didn't have it queued up.
Starry says again, people follow leaders with vision, and I think that's another big part of this. Is there's a lot of trepidation out there for folks who think we wouldn't fit in there, we shouldn't be there. And maybe you don't, but maybe your schools decide that they don't have a better choice and they have to see this and say, I actually really like this guy as a leader, and this could actually work for this better than I thought, just to maybe remove some of the stress that's going around with people right now, just to kind of realize like this isn't a bad option. And in terms of also Kaufman pointing out there that we did have some talk on the Pat Mack show where it's realignment in 2024. And I point out what was said there was that there'll be at least 20 schools per conference. And he's talking about, I think you're talking about Kirk
Herbstreit said that. Yeah.
And to me, my feeling when that was said was he just doesn't want to come out and say 24, or in my case, 25, 24 schools, because it's going to sound crazy. So he's saying 20. Well, it wasn't that long ago that if you were to say that we're going to get to 20 schools, everyone would think you're crazy. So it's continuing to go upwards. And he's basically saying, from a guy who's highly connected in ESPN, that this is where we're going, and you're going to find out more about that next year, which in my opinion is after football season. Like, they're probably going to cut down talking about this during football season, but afterwards it's open season. And I think he's talking about the ACC when he says that, because that's the only way the SEC, for one, gets to 20 or more, is if that happens. So that's when I thought, okay, they have some type of solution they're working on.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wait.
And I'm old enough to remember when 12 was crazy.
Dude, seriously.
Conference getting to 12.
Like, sometimes I wonder, like, these people don't realize what it was like prior to 2015, and this changeover to the autonomy system is, if you talked about realignment much at all, people thought you were crazy.
Yeah, I remember the Big Ten when it had 10 schools in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't even want to get into what I can remember. Jim puts out so many.
He basically just said that Michigan and Penn State sources he had confirmed that Washington and Oregon don't have a place within the Big
Ten.
That's
what it said. That's right.
In the immediate future.
That's the important part of it, though.
Right.
In the immediate future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember reading it. I wanted to quote him. But I'm looking at 9 hours ago, and he has probably put out 100 tweets today. Good luck trying to track down one. Anyway. All right. Well, nobody else has joined us, guys, and I think it's a good time to sign off. I appreciate everybody who's watched. Let's see. No, not that. I just want to leave with one last comment. Movie time blues. Big Ten Legacy School still obsessed with domers. Is that true there? True there, Melvin?
They have to bend the knee.
We'll see. I want to be a fly on the wall when that happens. That's all I got to say. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We had a crazy show, copyright stuff, and all this other things, but it's been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys had fun too. Our members have been live, and then we've had a bunch of new people join us today. I really want to thank Immaculate, Wild Ute, and Moen Vision for being here. And, man, what an amazing show we've had. And please tell your friends and family, subscribe, follow us, turn on your notifications. That's a big deal, so that you know when I'm going to put out shows, because sometimes I'm not quite as bad as Greg is, but I won't give you a lot of notice. So if you have notifications on, you won't miss it. Other than that, if you have anything for me, send me a DM on Twitter. And I think it's going to be a crazy week. I would encourage everybody to watch Greg Pflugar's show and follow him closely all week. Greg knows what he's talking about, and I don't. So on that note, guys, we'll say goodnight. Everybody have a great evening. And are we doing a show tomorrow, Immaculate? What are we doing?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you remember? We were talking about that, right? We talked about doing a show. Are we just recording?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay. I would put that TBD. Depends on what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I'm kind of looking to see if Greg pops out tomorrow or not.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Everybody talk about genuflect. I genuflect to Greg Pflugar. Anyways, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Good night, guys.